Welcome back to the report. Now, hundreds of people have been protesting in the Sri Lankan commercial capital of Colombo in reaction to the former president's bribery court summons. Valerie Brown has been following the story.
Former President Rajapaksa has been accused of unfairly pressurising opposition leader Atanyake to back his presidential campaign in December last year. The former Cabinet Health Minister reversed his political stance and demonstrated support for Rajapaksa's presidential bid after initially running against him. Now, hundreds of people have been protesting in Sri Lanka's Colombo in objection to the former President Rajapaksa's court summons following the allegations. Rajapaksa has denied any bribery has taken place, with a spokesperson saying he plans to ignore the summons to appear before the Anti-Bribery Commission due to commence on Friday.
මට ඊයේ ටැග් එකක් දුන්නා. මොකද්ද ටැග් ආණ්ඩුවෙන් මොකද්ද අල්ලසා මුල් අල්ලසා දූෂණ අල්ලසා දූෂණ කොමිසම නෑ ඒක නෙමෙයි අනිත් අල්ලස් කොමිස් දූෂණ අල්ලස් කොමිසමට මට එන්න කියලා මම බැලුවා මොකද මේ කියලා මහා ලොකු අල්ලසක් කරා කියලා මං හිතලා මම ඒක බැලුවා කියලා බලනකොට මම අල්ලසක් දීලා.
Opposing politicians and civil society organisations have complained that Rajapaksa has recruited the opposition and offered bribes in the past. Investigations into all financial deals during his decade in power have been ordered by Sri Lanka's new president, Sirisena, who won the presidency over Rajapaksa in January. Sri Lanka's new government have already claimed investigators have located more than $2 billion secretly transferred to accounts in Dubai by Rajapaksa's family during his presidency. Many members of the Rajapaksa family occupied senior positions in the Sri Lankan state. Rajapaksa's unexpected defeat to Sirisena in the presidential election earlier this year showed loss of support from the Sri Lankan people, though now hundreds of Sri Lankans have come out in a display of support in protest to allegations held against Rajapaksa. Valerie Brown, The Report.
Well, joining me to discuss that story are Charulata Hogg, who's an Associate Fellow at the Asia Programme Chatham House, and Irfan Iqbal, who's Senior Editor at Sonacar. Welcome to the programme. Why do you think it is that these accusations keep recurring? Has Rajapaksa been guilty of foul play?
Well, actually, the one which is currently going on, there is a technical information which needs to be understood. Now, as Mr. Rajapaksa, the ex-president, was explaining, I think he was struggling to find out or understand that whether there was any bribery commission existed in the country at all. So I think that itself self-explanatory, because for the past 10 to 11 years, no such things was operating in the country. Whereas as at the present, the accusation being, Mr. Rajapaksa has appointed, he did appoint a member of the opposition party at that time during the month of December, which is now the coalition of the government. He was the General Secretary called Mr. Tissa Tanayaka. So he then came into Rajapaksa's side. He was appointed as the Health Minister, which was held by the current President in the past. Now, the technical aspect here is, although Mr. Rajapaksa, in the same clip which you were just telecasting a while ago, in the extended part, he would say that as a president, he always had the right to appoint anyone. But whereas the current Justice Minister, Mr. Vijayadas Rajapaksa, yesterday explained that according to the Presidential Election Act, it is illegal to appoint anyone for such post after an election has been declared. So this is where the thing is coming from.
Charu, let me bring you in on this. Do you think that there is a basis for these accusations? Hi, Charu, can you hear me okay? lost the sound there on that clip.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, go ahead, Charu, yes.
Yes, essentially, all through the two tenures of President Rajapaksa's governance in Sri Lanka, his regime and he personally has faced allegations of widespread corruption. These have gained additional momentum since he lost the election, and there was an opportunity to actually investigate many of these charges. I think it is incorrect to say that no such commission exists in Sri Lanka. It is a fact that the commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption was created in 1958. So such a commission does exist. The point is over here that the independence of this commission has always been under question. And it was one of President Sirisena's primary objectives when he assumed, in fact, part of his manifesto, and then his primary objective to address this issue of autonomy of these commissions and ensure that they received the independence that they so deserved. But in terms of these allegations, we shall certainly find out more once these investigations are in place. But to say that these allegations are unfounded without an investigation would not be entirely correct.
Well, as you say, there have been repeated similar allegations over a considerable period of time. So what is it that continues to give Rajapaksa a base of support, continues to see people protesting at this?
Well, let's not forget that Rajapaksa has to be credited with the military defeat of the LTTE. The fact that the military defeat of the LTTE was accompanied by what are perceived as widespread war crimes, allegations of war crimes, and continuing charges of extreme human rights violations throughout the time he assumed presidency. So despite these allegations, the fact is that the defeat of the LTT can be, he is the one who was at the helm of the presidency when the military defeat occurred. This has generated widespread support among his primary vote bank, which is the Sinhalese Buddhist vote bank. Let's not forget, even during the January elections in Sri Lanka, the January 2015 elections, the main sort of conflict between Sirisena and the current President Sirisena and President Rajapaksa was over who would gain the maximum votes from this hardcore conservative Sinhalese vote bank. So he does enjoy a certain degree of support there.
I mean, a politician with that kind of backing and unable to ride out accusations of human rights abuses during that military operation, it wouldn't be, let's put it this way, it wouldn't be unusual if there had been political corruption in a regime like that, would it?
Yes, you're right. It won't be unusual, like especially now the way they build their regime. That is very important. Now, a short while ago, at around 5 p.m. today, Rajapaksa's younger brother has been arrested, Basil Rajapaksa, who was actually the former minister, and he just returned to the country yesterday. So we can't just go and say that there was no reason for them to arrest him. There was lots of complaints, justification was there, and then. Like even Charu pointed out, the problem is there was no system in place. In the same meeting, Mr. Rajapaksa was admitting, of course, I've done many wrongdoings in the past. Wrongdoing being, the first thing is I helped people to escape from their wrongdoings. That was my wrongdoing, what he explained. So, I mean, considering the fact that it is how the regime has been operated, I think it is quite justifiable, like for us to come to a conclusion how it was and how his mentality is. So yes.
Charu, you were saying, I think, that both Sirisena and Rajapaksa were competing for the same kind of conservative nationalist vote bank. Is there more than that going on here? Is there a shift back of support from Sirisena to Rajapaksa?
Well, I think it's too early to say that. Elections have been called, parliamentary elections have been called for June this year, and that would be quite a test. Having said that, as the gentleman just pointed out, Basil Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa's younger brother's arrest signals that this particular regime, Sirisena's regime, is going to deliver on its earlier promises of tackling corruption head-on among the Rajapaksa government and indeed with his siblings. So this could be this could spell quite a significant shift in terms of the support that Rajapaksa will enjoy if indeed his siblings and he himself has to provide testimony to the Corruption Commission and is indeed an honest investigation begins. Juxtaposed with this is the fact that President Sirisena's own hold over the party, over this coalition, it's fairly fragile, and there is a great deal of disarray within the party. So there needs to be an active cleaning up of their own house first in order to establish effective administrative control. And when a house is in disarray, then definitely there can be many more challenges to the throne, as we're seeing in this case.
And what about that statement that we heard in the news clip at the top of this item, where he says that he won't attend the hearing that he's been summoned to? Is that a political crisis heading down the road?
Well, indeed, the fact that members of the SFLP parliamentarians from his party have protested against the summons and have had a sort of have shown a show of strength in protest definitely does put into question how this investigation is going to proceed and indeed resolve itself. So, but there is always a higher court in the country. His summons can be legitimately enforced, and there is finally a question of rule of law, which one would assume that Sri Lanka is on this path to democracy and good governance, and indeed the vote in January was about pro-democracy and good governance, and there would be an attempt to enforce that.
Okay. What do you reckon? What will be the consequences if he carries through on that threat not to respond to the summons?
No, I mean, it is how he says, but the fact is, considering the fact that there was a protest, a sitting in protest on Monday evening, as well as some outside protests yesterday. Now, these are some of the things which we see from outside, but then, in my point of view, ex-president is limited with only two choices. Either he has to seek a stay order from the court, or else he has to file an objection at the Bribery Commission. I think they are moving towards to the second point. He has already declared, his legal team has already declared that they are going to file an objection. Now, that is for the purpose of delaying, but somehow he is going to face, because the primary object of this particular incident is to obtain a statement, not charge him, just to obtain a statement. So he is going to give it somehow.
Okay. Irfan Iqbal and Charu Hogg, thanks very much for joining us, but I'm afraid that's all we've got time for on this episode of The Report.